RTI is measuring with an inch ruler. Now, most of you that had RTI last math go around, you worked on something called the metric system. So that would be the centimeter and millimeter side of the rulers. But we're going to start working on what we use here in the United States, and that's called the standard system or the inch ruler. Okay, and this might be a tape measure, might be a yardstick, might be anything like that that has a ruler on the side of it. And many of you have probably seen these before, and you got like all these different sized lines in between them. So what you're going to learn today, that actually what an inch ruler is just an exercise in fractions and equivalent fractions. So let's take a look at it. Your two biggest lines here are your whole numbers. Okay, so in this particular exercise, it would be a 0 and a 1. So this is between no inches and 1 inch. Now this could be a 5 and a 6 or a 10 and an 11. Okay, it doesn't matter the whole numbers. They're all the same in between them. Okay, there's one that's exactly halfway, and as you can guess, that is ½ inch. Now if you take a look at this, between the 0 and the 1, it's 2 jumps to the 1, and we're at the first jump. Okay, so that's where we get the 1. It's the first jump between the 2 jumps. Okay, or it's halfway between 0 and 1 in this instance. Okay, alright, so now the next ones, let's look at the next longest lines. Okay, these are your 1/4 lines. Okay, so if you take a look at it, I'm going to draw jumps to here. There's 1/4, 2/4, 3/4, and 4/4. Now let's look at these fractions. Okay, so you have 1/4 on this line, so this line is the 1/4 line. Okay, the next one is 2/4. Now many of you know this with math, we've been working on fractions quite a bit, that 2/4 is not reduced. If we reduce both of it by 2, we end up getting 1/2. So 2/4 and 1/2 is the same thing. Then we go to the next jump, and that is 3/4. Okay, and that one can't be reduced, so that line is known as the 3/4 line. And then of course you get to the last jump, and that is 4/4. And you guys now know that when the numerator and the denominator are the same, that is one whole. Or it could be 2 or 3 or whatever whole number we're going to here. Okay, so those are the easiest lines on an inch ruler. The middle one's the half. The first big one you come to is the 1/4, and the last big one before the whole number is your 3/4. Well, now let's look at the next biggest ones. These guys right here. Okay, this one actually should be the same length as this one, but it got covered up. Okay, so this one, this one, this one, and this one are all the same lengths. Okay, so let's take a look at these. So these are called 1/8 inch. Okay, now if you look, I'm going to do a jump between each one, counting the long ones that we've already done. And you'll notice there's 8 jumps, 8 equal sections between the two whole numbers. Okay, so the first jump we come to, remember these are fractions, is 1/8. Okay, so that can't be reduced, so that's the 1/8 line. Now the next one I come to is 2/8. Now 2/8 is not reduced. You can divide it by 2, and what do you get? That's right, 1/4. Now the next one we come to is 3/8. That can't be reduced, so that's called the 3/8 line. Oops. Oh, really messed up. There we go. That's the 3/8 line. Okay. The next one we come to is 4/8, and yep, you know that 4/8 is 1/2. Then we have 5/8, and 5/8 cannot be reduced. So this line is known as the 5/8 line. The next line is 6/8. Divide that by 2 and you get 3/4. And the next one is 7/8, which cannot be reduced. That is the 7/8 line. Okay, so if you look at it, it's actually just counting by the odd numbers with the 8s. All the even numbers, 2/8, 4/8, 6/8, and 8/8, are all being reduced. Makes sense. Okay, so those are your 8s line. Okay, 1/8, 2/8, 3/8, 4/8, 5/8, 6/8, 7/8, 8/8. Now, sometimes most rulers, especially in school, you'll just have eighths and you won't have these little guys. Okay, that makes it a little bit easier too, so then it's just broken up into 8 equal sections. But on many rulers and on tape measures, you get these little tiny lines in here. Okay, those little tiny lines are the next step down, and those are called sixteenths. So if we go through and we look at every one of these, holy buckets, there's a bunch of them. In fact, there's 16 of them, right? 16 sixteenths. Okay, that goes all the way across this ruler. All right, now you know the end one is 16 sixteenths, right? I won't even write those. That's 16 sixteenths. Okay, so the first one is 1/16, right? Then the next one would be 2/16, which can be reduced to 1/8. Then we have 3/16. The next one's 4/16, or if you divide it by 4, you get 1/4. Then you have 5/16. Then 6/16 can be divided by 2, and that's 3/8. And then 7/16. 8/16 is a half. 9/16. 10/16 can be reduced to 5/8. Then you have 11/16. 12/16 can be divided by 4, so that is 3/4. Then you have 13/16, which can't be reduced. Then you have 14/16, which is divided by 2, 7/8. Then you have 15/16 is the last of these little lines, because the next one is 16/16, which is 1 whole. Okay, so that's what an inch ruler looks like. Now, I've actually seen some before with little tiny, tiny, tiny marks in between them. You don't see those too often, but those would be 30/2 of an inch. So for us, we're just going to go down to the 16th of an inch. So just remember, guys, you're basically looking at, if this is a 16th ruler, 16 jumps. So all you have to do is reduce fractions. So if you get to this one, and I count backwards, 16, 15, 14/16, which is 7/8. Okay? Now what I want to do is reset this page, and we'll do a couple and see if we can guess which one it's pointing to. Okay? Let me erase that, and we'll get rid of all of these. Might take a second. And there we go. Okay. All right, so let's start off with maybe an easier one. How about this guy? Okay. Maybe on your boards or on your paper, write down what you think that one is. I'll give you a few seconds. That is the 3/4 line. Okay. How about purple here? We'll do a purple one. How about this guy right here? Okay, which one do you think that is? Now, if you're stuck, remember, count by 16ths here on all these lines. So 1/16, 2/16, and then reduce it. Yep, that is 1/8. Okay, let's try the pink line here. How about this guy right here? Okay, how long is that one? I'll give you a few more seconds. That's the 3/8 line. And if you counted by 16ths, that was at 6/16. Okay, let's do 2 more. How about this green one? Let's go to right here. That line. Okay, give you a second to try to figure that one out. I would count backwards. This is 16/16, so count backwards. Yep, that's 13/16. And one last one. Let's do a light blue colored one here. And what do you think this one would be? So remember, we're counting 16ths here. That's 5/16. Okay, so what we're going to be working on is naming an inch ruler to the 16ths of an inch. Okay, in Go Formative, you're going to have a couple of practice ones on this and see how well you can do.